This is the Daily Saints Pod with Zach and Greg.
Hello and welcome back to the Daily Saints Pod. My name is Greg, and as always today joined by my good friend and wonderful co-host, Zach. Mate, have you quite recovered from the insanity of Tuesday night yet?
It doesn't quite feel real, and it should be the top news story everywhere. But instead, it's still the guy without the haircut. I know you made the joke coming into the podcast yesterday, but there's something like it's gone past the point where it's kind of like grinding my gears now. And I think it's still all right. Fair play to the guy, get his bag in that. But just like 4-3, we came from a 3-goal deficit. Like I was talking to my parents about it today, and like they're like, I don't believe that. Oh my god, that's crazy! Absolutely crazy, mental. No one seems to care apart from us, Greg, and Saints fans. And I'm trying to explain to people how important and how big this is. This is like, I don't know, man. It's been a good day.
Yeah, it's been great. And look, the journey continues, though. We've got more news from the club, more to talk about. I've got a huge list of talking points, mate, because you know that not a minute of the day goes past where I'm not consuming some sort of thought or content about Southampton. So, Alex McCarthy's got to have surgery.
Yeah.
That's one that came out.
That kind of sucks, but also I guess it makes sense to do it now, right? When he's not really getting much game time, they're not hugely worried about him being involved.
For a couple of weeks from it, apparently. I don't know. I thought surgery at that age was like a huge risk at like 163, but clearly he seems to have it under control. So
who knows, mate? But yeah, it's pretty.
It'll be good.
It's what it is, isn't it? At the end of the day,
It's funny.
I think the thing that surprises me the most about it, more than anything, is just like, so technically, how many goalkeepers do we have on our books now? Because technically, Rambo's still on the books, regardless of whether he's here or not, right?
Yeah.
So you've got Bazunu, who's out on loan and currently injured.
Yeah.
McCarthy, who is now out injured. Peretz, who is in on loan.
Yeah.
George Long, who is in on loan. Who we don't maybe expect to play, but maybe gets a chance in the FA Cup this weekend. And now you've got Jamie Jones, where the alliteration is killing me. Who, so far, all I've seen of the guy is like a horrific video of him accidentally giving away a free kick inside the box. It's very bad. But he's there to build fitness, right? Probably intention is not for him to play. That's entirely. This is again like I'll bring up the argument about Scott Carson every single time, because whenever you have a reserve goalkeeper, that's what their job is meant to be. Nothing more, nothing less, right? So
to do the warm up and round up the numbers, and fine, that's it. Do the training, drive the intensity of training. So yeah, I mean it's fine. No concerns from me, but just interesting to get a bit of transfer news post transfer window. That's not what I was expecting today. Put it that way.
You sent me a photo because I saw the photo initially before I showed up and read the article, and I just assumed it was like you sending me a picture of James Long, like George Long. And like, okay, and I was like, open it up, and I was like, this is a completely different goalkeeper, which shows you how much attention I pay to the appearance of George Long. That's no disrespect. It's just a bit of a weird one, but I guess it makes sense if they need someone involved in like the sort of the goalkeeping unit with McCarthy out, but. I get it. If he needs to have a surgery like that, I guess it makes sense to do it now. I just hope that we don't get some sort of curse where we end up playing like, our third or fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, maybe eighth choice goalkeeper at this point. Swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, that would not be ideal. Wow, what a horrible thought to have. Speaking of goalkeepers, and before I move on to hopefully some really good discussion points.
Okay.
And some questions I've got for you. I saw today that Kelvin Davis got the job at Hednesford up north.
Oh, really?
As manager in a lower league team. So
that's good for him.
Shout out Super Kelv.
He didn't have the worst spell at Eastleigh. There's been managers that have had worse. Not like he got him relegated or anything. Like,
Yeah,
he had a couple of good games there and stuff, and I think it was good. I think if I remember rightly, his son came through and was playing from at one point, right?
yeah, because
So
he's on loan from us,
yeah,
Sonny Davis.
so yeah, so it's always nice to see ex-players that mean a lot to the club do well at things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he was not just a player at the club, but long-time goalkeeping coach as well. And
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think fondly remembered by many Saints fans. And
Mm-hmm.
just interesting that on a day full of goalkeeper news, he also popped up on my feed. To be honest, might have gone slightly unnoticed otherwise, but there we are. Right, mate. I've got a few things to talk to you
Dang.
about. All
All
right.
right.
The first point that I want to make, it actually comes from Alfie House on Twitter. He put out a tweet that got me thinking, and he said, "If Saints go on and do the unthinkable this season, that historic win will go down as the moment it became possible." So, I mean, how unthinkable is the unthinkable? Like, are automatics still viable?
I don't
Question
think
mark.
automatics are viable at this point. I think that the fight between Middlesbrough and Coventry, I think they're not just going to like sort of down tools for the rest of the season, right? Coventry are going to want to get back up that spot quite quickly, and will try and build the momentum they had earlier in the season. Middlesbrough have managed to, settle after losing their manager and then carry on. I
Middlesbrough's run of form is insane.
Yeah, like I can't. No, you got to feel sort of a little bit sorry for Finn Azaz going, "Oh, I want to go to a team that's going to get promoted," and then the team he was in is probably looking to be automatically promoted. I don't
Like
know.
Barbers in Middlesbrough have never been so busy, right? Like,
Oh, Greg. Anyway, yeah, like I'd expect, potentially we get a chance in the playoffs, and that would be, all right. But it depends on how we do over the summer and what we plan to do to stay up, right? Because this has happened with this club before, with the ownership group before, and hopefully they've learned lessons. But I look at Sunderland, I don't think we can do that. I thought Sunderland were pretty weak last season. I didn't know if they would really be able to, even if they got promoted, I didn't expect them to stay in. And then they've done some really, really good business and now are having a better time than, well, quite a fair few clubs. Like, Thomas Frank was sacked today from Spurs, who are now relegation candidates, which is a crazy topsy-turvy world we live in nowadays. So
that's why we love
I
it,
don't
though.
think it's impossible. I think automatics are, unless something drastically bad happens at the top of the table, which also isn't outside the realms of possibility, to be clear. But unless something drastic happens, maybe we've got a chance in the automatics, but also it means consistently keeping a run of form. Because it would also be extremely sainty for us to win 4-3, an incredible comeback, and then our next league game just like lose in like a really, really pathetic like 1-0 like deficit or whatever. I don't think it's impossible. I would like to remain cautious still because I don't want to ever have a level of arrogance where I'm like, yeah, that's it. We're just going to like win it. In
Win
fact,
the league.
the fact that we already have quite a large level of arrogance in our pre-season sort of deciding where we would be in the table. Pretty sure both of you put us top. Both me and you put ourselves like Southampton top, and yeah, I just don't know. I kind of feel cross at that guy now.
I mean, look, in an effort to remain open and honest, it was sort of deliberately provocative question. I think automatics are out of reach. Is my genuine opinion.
I was extremely worried you were like dangling that carrot because that's what you believed. Because I also could believe that you would occasionally believe that in the background.
No, I genuinely believe that is just too far of a gap to bridge at this point in the season. But all of a sudden, the kind of previously distant prospect of being in and amongst the playoffs is no longer that distant, right? Like, granted, with an extra game played than all of the teams above us, 1 point from sixth and only 7 points from fifth. If we even carry on with even half the form we're on with the run at the moment, it's not as far off, is it? It's definitely viable, feasible outcome. It's not as huge of a gap as it seemed three or four games ago, right? So it's
agreed, but again, it's more if you look at the teams currently in playoff places, they have also had consistently good runs of form, right? Ipswich, Hull, Millwall, Wrexham are up and down, and now we are doing significantly better and we are significantly more amongst it. And there was a while there that Derby seemed to be a much better team than us, and we've now overtaken them. Admittedly, as you pointed out, with games in hands across the place as well. And I think that's more than we're in and amongst it, and more credit to like how the championship is as a league, right? Like 47 and 28, like a 19-point difference between getting into playoffs and not. And whilst that gap is getting bigger and bigger, and we said that we worried about that after the beginning of the season, beginning of Christmas, and how important the Christmas period was, and we kind of like have come out of that now, with ups and downs, and we're starting to go on an upward trajectory. Yeah, I don't know if I really put it down as this is the moment, but I think that Alfie is right in what he's saying, though. If we do get promoted and do the unthinkable,
this will be when
people.
Point.
But I think should it have been maybe like the South Coast derbies? Maybe that should have been enough motivation, etc.
I would argue that without the grit and performance and togetherness that came from the South Coast derby, even though it wasn't the result we wanted, without that, we don't get Tuesday.
I agree. Actually, no, you're right. That's very, very fair.
So it's sort of built towards it. And I mean, the true joy for me, obviously, watching back the highlights and watching back the goal, which I have done lots, to be clear. I think I had the highlights on loop for at least an hour last night, and then I showed it to the kids, and then we watched the extended highlights. It's just been fantastic. But really, the genuine highlight for me is watching the photos and the videos at the end of the entire team together, celebrating together. I think that if you remember, like earlier in the season, I talked about it, about how that wasn't the case at some points where players would just shoot off down the tunnel, but they were all together and genuinely celebrating together. And it just feels at the moment like we've hit that point where we are actually a team instead of just a group of individuals who you'd quite happily believe spend all week at training looking at their phone. Like they're a team that are playing for each other finally, and it's great, isn't it?
I agree. As I said, a talking point for you, Greg, to flip around a little bit is, do you think that is because of some of the transfer business and them sending out the people that potentially didn't want to be here and are getting rid of kind of what they would consider maybe deadwood? And we said, we're still a bit flabbergasted by some of the decisions, but actually removing like the people that haven't really had their head in the game as much. Do you think that has also been a contributing factor? Because it can't be a non-factor.
I think so. I just think a combination of all things, like you say, trimming the squad, because even if it doesn't have direct effect to remove players like Joe Aribo who have, not been about, right? Even if it doesn't have direct impact on the players and their togetherness, it probably frees up more of Tonda's time to work on such things and do that stuff, right? And, we talked about the psychologists, and I'm sure that plays an element into it. And, who knows what it was that made the pieces come together. But we said all season, or at least I said all season, we've just been like close to that clicking point for the longest time, and it was just going to happen eventually. And if knowing what the answer was had a magic remedy, everyone doing it wouldn't be as magical or as effective as it is. But something's worked. Probably just a combination of all of the things. The South Coast derby coming and being what it was, and like the transfers and just finally sort of picking up, being able to grind out a result was really important for that, for confidence as well as togetherness, right? It's just, it's nice to see that it seems to all be coming together without trying to sort of speak too soon, because we know as we hit these points that it doesn't always stay that way.
So much horror. Like, we've just talked about some of the worst performances, some of the worst stuff we've watched in the space like the last year and a half, and like, it's just been dire. So yeah, you're right. We do need to jump on the moments of just sheer joy, and last night is one of them. You
Yeah.
know,
But then looking forward as well, right, and talking about how realistic playoffs may or may not be, the three teams, as it stands, that we will be looking to leapfrog, right, call sixth the target, right, and be realistic. Bristol, Preston, and Wrexham all above us. We'd have to jump all of them to get to sixth. We also have to play all of them left in our fixture list.
Yep.
And, you know, you look at the other games, our next game's Charlton, who we absolutely hammered in the reverse fixture. So, you know, you'd like to think we'll be going in that as good candidates to win. QPR, who are on sort of murky form and up and down after that. Then, you know, Sheffield Wednesday, you know, they want to rag on
like
them
at this point
for
they
the
should
problems
just
they're having.
they should just finish the league with them
Yeah.
demoted and give everybody an automatic 3 points, because it does just feel at this point like bullying more than anything. Like, it's upsetting to watch us play a team like that. I look forward to eating my words wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
When
And
they
then, you
inevitably
know,
somehow get something against us.
Couple of tough games after that, Norwich and Coventry, with West Brom thrown in the middle, which, you know, you hate to say, but based on current form, is not one of those difficult games in theory. Oxford, who are, you know, battling at the bottom, should, in theory, be a win. And then, yeah, the games that are directly against the teams around us. Derby, Wrexham, Ipswich, Bristol. It's all, you know, the important part of the season is now, because all of the teams we have to play are the teams that we are competing with. So basically every game's a 6-pointer, you know?
Could have been
It's
so much easier, but again, we never like to do anything easy. And,
yeah, I mean, where's the fun in that, mate? Who wants to just be 100 points clear at the top of the league?
not to kind of have one of those, like, if my grandma had wheels, she'd be a bike question, which I know we all love. But, like, it does make me think, if we've still got a couple of slightly better results, right? Not like a lot,
Yeah.
just enough to keep him employed, and we kind of just continue to kind of like go through and dither between sort of 10th, 11th and 12th all season. Do you feel like last night would have happened, or do you think that the specific, like, because you talk about togetherness and this, that, and the other, and, like, you know, there are some players that are now in the squad that weren't really getting a look in under still, right? And, you know, he was like putting McCarthy in goal all the time. And, like, would he have actually said that he needed a backup goalkeeper if Baz barely played and he kept playing McCarthy? And would we have even ended up with Peretz? Like, because again, if some of the footballing decisions are being made and the buck stops with Spurs, you know, has the head coach really mattered? And, like, I don't want to take that victory away from Eckert at all, because, like, it was, well, you know, his substitutions ultimately are the ones that made it. But I just think, would we have just continued to languish in the middle of the park, occasionally picking up a win here and there? Or do you reckon that we'd have ever managed to get onto a run of form, considering what you said was that it needed to click together, and for some reason the still it just couldn't?
I don't know, mate, because I think that a big part of the togetherness and all the stuff that's coming out, I mean, you have to credit Tonda with some of it, right? What he's doing, the culture he's trying to pass down to the players and bring through, and the attitude, right, is very different than what we saw of Will Still. And, you know, I talked yesterday about his, like, quiet but slightly just
Unhinged level of confidence.
Yeah. And
bloke enjoys a Five Guys in Winchester, I've been known to hear.
I think that it's just, I think it might purely be a charisma thing, and, like, it's still an important part of the role, right? You can be the most gifted football technician brained manager, but if you can't get those ideas across and drive the, you know, the desire into the players to do that for you, then, you know, that's half the battle. You've got to win the players over to get that buy-in, and we saw it from day one, as Tonda being sort of caretaker manager as well. So, you know, whatever he's doing is working. at the moment. And no, I don't think we'd have been in this position. I think we'd probably be closer to Pompey or West Brom's position if we'd kept Will Steele. And the thing is that it's just our desire to think about the best outcome, because I remember feeling the same last season, right, when we got rid of Russell Martin, and then we just continued to have a horrible season. And it's like, oh, but if we'd have just been like slightly luckier at the start of the season, and we hadn't have had that awful VAR decision, and we hadn't
Exactly what I was
like had that
about
crazy deflected goal, then maybe we'd have done better if we'd have stuck with Martin. And then when you look at what he has done to other clubs since then, you think, that's just the rose-tinted glasses. Like, we'd still be watching Taylor Harwood-Bellis and Jack Stevens record numbers of passes between them going nowhere on the pitch, like someone playing FIFA has held down their A button, mate. Like, it's just we'd just be in exactly the same position. It's just you want to think back and think the best, but yeah, it's clear he's doing something right to bring it, and you can't knock it. No other manager's turned the roller coaster back around after a downswing of form in recent memory like that. So
we kind of ignored stats yesterday because that podcast was entirely off of vibes. But ever since you said that, I thought, let me have a check for what the stats were yesterday. And I put up in my solo match review, right, of how we sort of had double the amount of forward passes to backward passes. So if I told you that we had 64 backward passes in the entirety of that match yesterday, how many passes do you think we had total?
I don't know, what's the average, like 320 or something?
477, and only 64 of them were backwards.
It's insane. Are we counting Tom Fellow's assist as a backward pass, do you think?
I don't know, maybe.
Look, it's easier to take that with the grain of humour after what happened in the second half, right? Like, it is what it is.
133 forward passes, so yeah, almost over double again. But also 25 total crosses. Man, that was an insane game. Anyway, back to...
Yeah. I mean, the important stat is that they had 3 shots on target and 3 goals, and they all came in the first half. Like, just...
mad. Dearie me. But, yeah...
All right, mate, it leads me to the... You've led me nicely into actually the main question I had written down as a talking point, that actually I think if I'd have asked you at the beginning, we might have got a full episode out of this one question. So I don't know, brace yourself, mate. Regardless of what happens and whether we go up or go down, right? Or obviously not go down, sorry, stay down. Tonda's got the job next season based off of performances?
His contract's not for 6 months, so I don't understand why this is really a talking point anyway. Like, they didn't,
His contract wasn't for 3 months, mate. That's not what happened.
But there was always a clause that we always knew that clause was in place from early doors, but I don't really see a need. Like, if it's, we make it to the playoffs. If it's, for example, we now have a downward turn in form and we finish 16th. Okay, yeah, find somebody new. If we finish in the playoff spots and, we miss out by like a breadth or one game or whatever, like, look what happened at Sheffield United, right? Yeah. Let's get rid of him. And then they phoned him back up 6 months later, like, oh, sorry.
What about a completely feasible situation where we finish 7th, narrowly missing out on playoffs?
Unless they can find a proper proven championship manager who they decide that, he's done enough, in my opinion, to at least give him a little bit of a go. And like, we keep talking about this all the time. We have no stability, but we have become the new Watford. Like, Watford, don't get me wrong, are trying to keep up being Watford, right? Like, to the point they've even appointed our former head coach's brother randomly out of the blue, which nobody expected. But it's maybe we need a little bit more stability for just a little while. And I also think that he has the experience at that point of a season in the Championship as the manager. He's had a season at that point with the players and knows who are good and who are bad, and knows because the other thing that you always have is sometimes you get a clean slate, but you end up, this is how we've got all of these various different cliques that have kind of, I guess, formed. And like, when you had Juric come in, and then he had Onuachu, Aribo, and Solomana that sort of had a bit of a renaissance under him, right? And then subsequently, two of them left, and one of them was just left completely out in the cold. And when he did come on, was sluggish as hell. So for me, why would you really want to upset the equilibrium other than for the sake of it? And I'm also not deluded to think that we're going to have incredible names queuing out the door. I know that a lot of people are talking about how we're an attractive job, but me and you keep talking about how the transfer funds, and we'll see what happens in the summer. On top of that, you've got a director of football who controls more than I think most head coaches would allow that to happen. And I never want to be as delusional as what I heard on Radio 1 earlier when I was listening to Newsbeat or whatever it was, and people were suggesting Carlo Ancelotti for Tottenham now that Frank has gone. And I feel like we have already, or alternatively, slightly more realistic because he was their manager, is they're talking about Pochettino coming back. I'm like, what, before he leads a host nation to their World Cup? Are you insane? No. And that's the thing, is we'll have to go through a whole other summer of speculation, and then we might finally ended up with what we consider to be a proven manager, and it will be one of the managers that has been in the merry-go-round of all the middle of the table clubs, and who doesn't get our back room, doesn't get our academy, doesn't get our staff, or they'll just do a Sports Republic thing and just promote Lallana, because that's another thing that they like to do. So I'm kind of, for the time being, there isn't really a reason for me to say no. He's also shown he's adaptable. We've moved into a back four. I don't know if we've necessarily had a massive conversation about that, but tactical adaptability is supposedly a thing we've brought in with our last couple of managers, right? It was supposed to be coming with this heavy metal football that never happened. And, Rusk was defensively shored us up. And then the whole point about Will Steele that we were looking forward to, if you remember rightly, Greg, when we did our preview episode around him, was the idea that he was supposed to bring this kind of tactical renaissance where what he will do is try and win the game. And if that means making it 4 at the back or 5 at the back, whatever. And what he subsequently tended to do was play the same way as the last couple of managers, and it didn't really break the deadlock and didn't really utilize people. And we don't know if that became from an order from the top. I know that he said part of it was to do with the personnel he had. Basically had the same personnel as he's got now. In fact, at one point he had Rorislev and Jalert, who could have easily both played right back without needing to be, wingers. So I just don't really see a reason to be against the end of the season, we'll get rid of him. Because also, mate, the season isn't over. That's the other big thing, right? We've still got 100%. A lot of football to play, and we're in a high point, and we should enjoy it, and yes, we should be proud of the players, and some of them played out their skin yesterday. All of the substitutes that came on, Suki, Charles, Stewart's goal,
Leo with 90 minutes, 2 assists. Yeah, I mean, what more can you ask for?
The team play is a really good team, and I don't want to diminish that. But again, there's still football to be played. There's still, lots to be won and lots to be lost. And if we end up, getting solid draws into the rest of the season, we end up 13th, 14th and stuff. Yeah, maybe okay. Maybe it's time to get somebody else in. But I think it's kind of a discredit to already ask, should we think about getting rid of him again? We just becoming those people that the instant we lose 2 in a row, it's wow, we told you he was bad. And it's we've won 12 games now, and how many of those wins are Tondas?
Yeah, basically all of them.
Yeah.
All but 2, right? Mate, just thought I'd judge the vibe, because honestly, the more and more I see and hear of Tonda, the more I like him. In Tonda we trust. That's the stance here.
If it's partly also because he's a yes man, if it's a yes man that is able to work within the system, that is also better. And having somebody that wants to clash. We talked about that as a big point of contention and concern with manager like Nuno arguing at Nottingham with their owner, and that kind of resulting in him going. So you're seeing more and more of that with clashing with directors of football and clashing over transfer policy. It's why Chelsea have now ended up with Liam Rosenior. All of these things are, if you've got a manager that is able to produce results and work within the framework of the club, regardless of whether we agree with it or not, doesn't really matter. It's going to continue until they decide that they don't want to. Then that's even better. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily a good thing because, it means that they've got proven success, but I also don't really see them planning to change it down the road. So, for the time being, mate, I don't really see any reason to change it up. And I don't really see any reason to change it up next season if it continues to be good.
I fully agree, and it's interesting. It's just nice to hear how similar our thought paths are and how sort of on the same page we are.
Good.
Right, mate. At the risk of making this an incredibly long episode, I do have one final point to touch upon, and I'm sure you remember, Zach, and listeners, you remember we had a big talk about Sports Republic the other week, and
We did.
had to dig into some figures and came to some conclusions. And I wanted to talk about a post from the Staple Saint that we shared between each other earlier on. And he took a much more in-depth look at the purchase of the club and went much further back and laid out a whole load of stuff in a big post on Facebook. And so shout out, because it was a fantastic
we had a little back
read.
and forth about, what was it, the whole drama with the I can't ever remember their name, Valencians. We had a little back and forth because he was asking about source material and if anyone could find it. And I said, yeah, unfortunately, it's just like the one video. And he had very sort of similar philosophy on source control to me, which is like, well, as much as there's a video about it, that's great. And as much as this guy's an investigative journalist, the fact that I can't verify anything he's saying drives me up the wall. And I really respect journalistic integrity in a world where that doesn't usually exist with just stuff that's said on the internet. So I find him to be very, very reasonable, and I like a lot of his takes. And even if I don't necessarily agree, I think you pointed out he's got very good arguments. So I
mean, he puts his points across well, and also, even if I don't agree with some of the things, but what he came out with to try and summarise his very long post, which is definitely worth a read, so go and check it out. The amount that Dragan Solak has put into the club as a whole, it was £100 million to buy the club, and about £63 million in capital injections to handle the change in operational funding between the drop from the Premier League to the Championship, and handle some existing club debts from the previous owner. And he sort of went through some of the other stuff and compared the transfer windows before Spurs and under Spurs, and puts a really interesting point that it's been a lot better, hasn't it? There's still been some misses, but I'd argue more hits than misses since he came in, right? You're talking about Yander, Cienza.
What is the miss, right? Downs. And that
Downs,
is because trying to play him.
Maybe Rorslev.
Yeah, Rorslev, Gillett, interesting sort of decisions. Again, that's because they wanted to try and bring in Premier League experience that made sense at the time, I guess.
I don't even really know if he's a miss as much of his fitness, although we knew his fitness was shaky when we took him on. So
Gillette's alone anyway, so it can come to an end. Decision making around the fact that it took him half the season to bring a new goalkeeper in. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But that's partly down to, but that's, I guess, part of the actual wider criticism, right? Because it took him so long to be able to get somebody that's in charge of the football. And it's the conversation we've been having since it started, Greg, is that ultimately, bringing people that didn't seem to be able to understand the club and also just leaving the club to its own devices without any structure there to help it clearly call our worst Premier League campaign on record. And that was awful, and it shouldn't be forgiven lightly, and it shouldn't be ignored. Brought Spurs in. Everyone's still kind of not made up their mind, but I think also you have to credit the fact that, if Yander's being looked at as a 25 to 30 million pound transfer in the summer, shrewd business. Leo, shrewd business. That you're right, more hits than misses, which means that we're starting to be slightly smarter about it, and that's making sure these appointed somebody that is a bit smarter around it all. I think it's just judgment in the first place, and the kind of the stuff that we're not going to know about because it's off the books, the stuff that isn't public, and all those kind of things are definitely worth being worried about. And I know that you've not flip-flopped. I think you were significantly more Sports Republic out than you ever have been over the last couple of weeks, especially when you did your episode. And you're right, we've kind of been fleeced. And it very much similar to any businessman, though, they're always going to make profit off of something, right? No one wants to buy a football club for it to just make a loss. What is the point? Unless you are Unless you're playing real life Football Manager, which if you're like a Saudi prince with billions and billions of like pounds worth of oil money, really easy to do. Ultimately, if you're treating it as a business, you are going to expect output from something you are putting a lot of money into. And the problem is that that's where it becomes an emotive topic, because I agree with the guy that put in our YouTube videos ages ago. The club ultimately is the fans. Like any players and owners and stuff will come and go. It's the people that have supported the club through thick and thin through the entirety of their lifetime that are honestly the lifeblood of it. And so yeah, I don't think you're ever going to be in a position where you have what I would consider to be ultimately charitable owners. And like we're quite lucky that we've had people, bail us out in the past, and that may be because of the fact we've had those types of owners. It's made us, I guess, more bitter when we've got an extremely sort of money focused ownership group, and who, by the sounds of it, the mistakes they've made elsewhere have been to do with them appointing terrible people and then paying zero attention to it, which is why,
which is really similar to what we saw here. So
which that, like, you're seeing those kind of issues occur elsewhere. Like, I'm not going to go into that stuff because, again, real litigious certain people. I ain't dealing with that. This is a part-time hobby for you and me, mate. Like,
I think, like, to try and sort of summarize it and bring it together.
Yeah, because I'm terrible at that. You're right.
Where I sit after the information that's come to light, or that was brought to light in this post, it answers some of the questions we had about money, right? And not all. There are still questions out there. I think where I land on it is, I don't like the multi-club model. I don't like even though it's been better, I don't like the recruitment strategy of buy players that you're going to be able to turn over for a profit.
Especially when they go in less than a year. That is frustrating.
And I still feel a lot of the ways that I felt before. However, I do cautiously hope and feel that maybe they, by luck or by judgment, have got the right group of people in place at the moment to at least make it work. So there's hope amongst the displeasure, I guess.
Okay. That definitely summarises your thoughts, but from mine, it's that it sucks that they don't really care, but they don't really care. What they care about, again, is the fact that the pound signs go up. And whether that's done through investing into infrastructure, which results in people spending more money, making people turn up to match day more, asking you really money-hungry questions about season tickets, and hey, could you turn up to more cup games, please? Because we're not selling them. What if we bolted it onto your season ticket? Would you come then? It's those kind of questions. And
I don't know, mate. I don't know if that was just like tone deaf from that survey.
No, it's exactly what it's been all along, which is they want to make more money. It's a really easy way to make more money. To make more people turn up on the days where people aren't turning up, they'll spend more money. And, this is why I know you've got the whole argument of, oh, well, you spend more local, spend more at the pubs and stuff like, yeah, but people are preachers of convenience and habit. If people want to go to the fan zone, they'll go to the fan zone. If people want to eat inside, they'll eat inside. You're never going to be able to change. There aren't the people that look into this stuff as much as we are. There aren't people that, I guess, care as much as some of the fan base care. And ultimately, like any business, you're kind of a bit disappointed. You wish he was kitted out in full Saints kits, came every week, was kind of a bit more, I don't know, showed a bit more custodianship with a sharper eye, right? Because clearly what's happened in France is them taking their eye off the ball. That team is plummeting down the leagues and is not being cared for whatsoever. And they'll probably eventually sell it off. And they picked it up when it was in dire straits, right? They picked up for cheap, and they've not really been able to do what they did here. They've not managed to do what they've done at Goalkeeper either. And they're probably just going to take it as a loss later on. In fact, we already pointed out they're looking at a fourth club elsewhere. It's the unfortunate fact of life that people don't like, business people aren't as bothered about the things that we get bothered by until it starts having an effect on the bottom line. And getting demoted from the Premier League was a huge issue because we went back up and we should have done more to stay in there. And they spent a bunch of money on absolutely ridiculous transfers because they allowed, other than Fernandez, the rest of them were just Ramsdale was maybe good business, but yeah, it's just that the money people are never going to really be that invested into their business, whether they should or not. We want them to care more. We want them to put more into the club. We want them to spend more. We want to not just be a selling club. And I think that you will be hard up to find an ownership group or owner that is willing to just kind of pump disgusting amounts of money into it, apart from what you're seeing, which in the Premier League, where even that can sometimes then have like PSR complications, because if the club's not actually generating money, they can't just spend it, especially if it's just a loss-making club. So it's not an easy thing. It's not easy, but let's just not pretend, Greg, that couple of wins and we know where some of the money is. That kind of takes the pressure off, because there are a lot of people that are still incredibly unhappy, and it's up to them to earn the trust back, not us to give our trust to them.
No, I agree, and it is definitely just sort of papering over the cracks. And like I say, I don't like a lot of the things that are going on, but I am relieved and optimistic that
it won't be as bad as you think it was going to get to.
Yeah,
okay.
That's where I'm at. Hopefully, at least
summer will be fascinating. To borrow a word from you, mate, simply because what will happen? Because if we stay in the league, there will probably be some departures that people will not be pleased with. If we go up, I can't really think about it then. But then either way, at that point, they then need to completely rebuild again. We know what happens when you go up in a league, and the gulf of quality is insane. So either way, it'll be a fascinating summer. And then also it leads nicely back into your previous question: is do we keep the under-21s coach that's like just celebrated his 32nd birthday if we manage to make it up to another league above? Right? Is that do we hire more? There's so many questions around it, and like all of those would be the things that make my decision up on the direction of Sports Republic, because currently, because Tonda's getting results, the transfer window is closed. There isn't really a huge amount for us to be mad about, but that could all change in the summer, is where I'm at.
All right, yeah,
that's what I'm kind of
I feel like where we've landed is a surprise to no one, in that I'm cautiously optimistic and you're cautiously pessimistic, and that's really the entire dynamic of our show.
You just fulfilled the stereotypes of our personality.
Right, look,
dearie
that
me.
is definitely all we have got time for today. A nice booster 8th episode. How it always happens when we start
the bumper weekday episode of rambling from the both of us, mainly
when you start the pre-recorded chat with, have we got anything to talk about today? You just know you're in store for a 15-minute episode. It's just the way it goes. But look, thank you, Zach, for joining me, and thank you everyone for listening. We will be back tomorrow to preview a game that absolutely everybody cares about, the FA Cup game against Leicester, the most important game of the season, I've heard it called.
Mate, considering we just had the comeback in the century in their own backyard, and they've come back to a place that we beat them 3-0, I can't wait for us to lose 1-0.
Absolutely fascinated to see how that game plays out. But listen, let us know how you have managed to recover from the absolute ecstasy of Tuesday night and how you're feeling about it still. We are Daily Saints Pod everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky, X, Facebook, YouTube, everywhere. Let us know in the comments or on the socials. While you're there, give us a follow, give us a like, give us a subscribe. It goes so far in helping us as a newly independent podcast. We have seen the boost in numbers recently, and we are so grateful to you all for tuning in and listening to us every day. Like I say, without the podcast, I would still just be a person consuming every single piece of Saints anyway. So it's nice to be able to talk about it here and not bore my wife to tears. So,
ironically, this probably helps our day job as much as sometimes they might not think that's the case, because we get to have these conversations here and not, work, which is what would happen if we weren't.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, thank you very much, everyone. We'll be back tomorrow, like I say, but until then, have a great day, and we'll see you then.
This is the Daily Saints Pod with Zach and Greg.